He's the one that sums up that demented left-wing, in-your-face, beating you about the head, not just with the comedy, but with the ideas behind it.
I mean, don't people talk cack, Abe? Oh, that Shirley Williams has got nice teeth. I'm going to vote for her. Cack, bloody cack, bloody cack. Oh, all this dog shit, I blame Ken Livingstone, you know. Cack, bloody cack. It's even worse at bus stops. Oh, there's 18 gone into town and only one come this way for a day and a half. Bloody cack. And you grab them by the throat and smash their head against the timetable.
Alexi Sayle is the grandfather of alternative comedy. In post-punk Britain, comedy was about to get a radical overhaul, and Alexi was in at the beginning when he became the first compere of the Comedy Store in 1979.
I'll do you, sunshine. You're not getting me off like that.
Comedy had lost its way, really. Comedy before alternative comedy, I think, was either kind of drunken racists in working men's clubs or whoever went to see Billy or Jasper.
There was no one like Alexi coming out on stage, coming out with the stuff that he did. Wonderful stuff. He used to come out and say to us, OK, I'm a Marxist-Leninist comedian. And if you bastards don't find my stuff funny, you're a load of fascist shitbags. That was the opening of his act.
You know, people often say to me, Alexi, what is alternative, new wave, Marxist comedy? And I say, sod off, you nosy bastard.
I used to terrify the shit out of people, but I also made them laugh. The most important thing for any comic is authority.
Now what I am is Britain's first mod two-tone poet, right? Now I think it's about time, so I've invented myself, you know? And you know, I'm trying to articulate all them thoughts us mods have, you know, like, duh. And I think I'll duff that geezer.
I mean, I was just always arrogant and thought I was absolutely brilliant, and therefore, yeah, well, yeah, of course I was on the telly, of course I had a hit record.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo.
Yeah, why did it only get to number 14? Why wasn't it number 1, you know? Why haven't I got the Nobel Prize, you know?
Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo. He's an Avon representative. He's an Avon representative.
Yeah, I guess it made a difference.
Sayle prematurely ended touring as a stand-up in 1985 to concentrate on TV work. After several hit solo shows and even a short stint in Hollywood, he's now a successful author.
I was just like an early prototype, you know. I was like one of them cars, you know, in the early era of the automobiles that kind of run half steam and half by a kind of donkey. And then when sort of somebody like Frank Skinner came along, they thought, oh, you know, he's not calling us cunts. Pretty soon people realised they could get by without me.
I like the fact with Dylan Moran, it's not an act. That is Dylan Moran.
I'm kind of looking forward to being properly old, you know? Really, really old. So that I can lean over in a restaurant with my son or daughter and say, you know what I just did? I just pissed myself. You deal with it.
Dylan Moran has been making us piss ourselves ever since he became a comedian way back in 1991, after watching some of Ireland's best stand-ups perform at the Comedy Cellar in Dublin.
It's the way that he puts sentences together, like it's almost like he's reading his act from a novel.
I don't even see young people on the street anymore when I go out. I see youths. You know how they're described in police radio reports. That's what I actually see. Slumped S-shapes in their hoods, beside their harrowed dogs in a bin full of burning grannies. All texting each other because they've given up on speech.
Because he's got a beautiful lilting voice, and you get the feeling that he's, you know, telling you a story. But in fact, it's very feedline, punchline. They're all jokes, and they're coming at you every 30 seconds.
It makes me feel so old. I walk by them, and I do this thing now. I've started to grab my keys. I clutch them as I pass them. I go, look at them. And I push the keys between the spaces in my fingers, so that if I do have to hit one of them, I'll fucking kill them.
You sort of think he's like kind of half pissed or about to go into a kind of strange twitching coma or something.
Even their clothes intimidate me. Her T-shirt said Mongoloid Porn Inferno. And all I could think was, that sounds like such a busy evening, you know.
Al Murray shot onto the comedy scene in the early 1990s, his act then consisting of this rather odd sound effects routine. In 1993, Murray created the pub Landlord and began filling venues all over the country.
Let's hear it for the beer! All hail to the ale! And welcome to wine for the ladies.
Al Murray came out of a school of comedians who came out of the early 90s, who were comedians doing character comedy. Taking the idea of standing up and doing straightforward, honest stand-up and just twisting it.
God bless the plucky Swiss. Hey, look at the situation these people have got themselves into, hey? God blimey, have they got, what have they got? French to the right of them, yeah? Austrians to the left of them, Germans up above, Italians down below. You'd never sell that flat, would you?
He could sell out a live tour almost constantly. What's interesting is how easy it is for him to transfer to television, and so far he's always found that slightly difficult. But as a live stand-up, I think he's probably got no equal.
Is it live, hand it over.
No, yes. I want it, I want
Darling,
to keep
you're a
it.
very naughty girl.
Get out.
Well, that's a confiscation. Rules is rules. It's pint for the fella, glass of white wine, fruit-based drink for the lady. Those are the rules. If you didn't have rules, then where would you be? That's right, France.
In between writing some of the best sketches in American TV history for The Sid Caesar Show and creating a comedy film genre all of his very own, Woody Allen was one of the most influential stand-ups America has ever produced.
Last year, the group broke up. I get in the mail an engraved invitation, class reunion, the old group analysis group. All the neurotics came back, all the nail-biters and bedwetters, you know, it was a catered affair. Fabulous thing. And in the interim, 2 of the kids in the group had gotten married, and this is adorable, because it's what you'd call a mixed marriage or an intermarriage, in that the girl was paranoid, and the boy was schizophrenic. And there was a big conflict about which way they would bring up the children.
His take on the world was so definable that he could apply it to anything and make it funny.
You know, in terms of the quality of the material, was breaking new ground. I mean, it's hard now to appreciate how new that ground was, to being that personal.
This is my album, my record album, and I want you to go into stores and ask for this. And if the dealer doesn't have it, go back at night with a can of black paint and paint a swastika on the store.
But the thing about Woody is he shouldn't really be involved in this list because he hated stand-up comedy. He couldn't wait to get out of it.
I taught myself to type by memorizing the keys of the typewriter. First line is Cordy up. Second line is Astaficatical. The third is Zixfubnum. But they rarely come up in letter writing.
World-weary Jack Dee carved a niche for himself as the granite-faced, grumpy young man of comedy in the 90s.
Welcome to Happy Hour. I remember seeing him when he started and he wasn't that great, and then there was a moment where he suddenly found his own comic voice, and it was just by kind of talking about himself and his life and who he was really like.
Personally, I can't think of anything worse than a machine in the house that makes you think you're somewhere else. You know, what could be actually worse than that? You put the live album on, you're there, you're at the rock festival. What do you do, go and take a piss behind the settee or something?
I just think people love hearing someone moaning.
Queue for 3/4 of an hour to get a warm can of Coke out your own kitchen. You know? What was it, £2, is it? 2?
He's playing a character. He's playing a grumpy person, but when you actually meet him, he's not that grumpy.
My dad is obsessed with central heating. But any of you got a dad like that? Or come into the room, walk straight past you, go up to the radio, she goes... And he goes, have you been playing with that? Oh, yeah, Dad, it was me. Had to confess, had some friends round, you know what it's like. We watched television and just couldn't stay off the radiator any longer.
Why get into stand-up? I thought it would be a laugh. And it is. I was asked last November to judge Mr. Gay UK. I said it would be my pleasure. He's against nature and against God and he's going to hell.
Often outrageous and always hilarious, Jimmy Carr is one of the smartest and most smartly dressed men in comedy.
I've got a friend whose nickname is Shagger. You might think, that's pretty cool. She doesn't like it. I didn't really pick my style, it picked me. That's all I could do. My girlfriend said to me, have you been having sex behind my back? I said, who the fucking hell do you think it was?
He is the modern, sophisticated. Charm is but a mask of aggression, Jimmy Carr. Every mother would like her daughter to marry this man, but behind him he has got that sword.
I still can't forgive the Germans for the way they treated my granddad during the war. Passed over for promotion time and time again. Writing comedy isn't really about writing, it's more about editing. It's about what you don't say. It's 18 years since the Chernobyl disaster. Is it just me that's surprised? Still no superheroes. A feed line is like figuring out what's the fewest words I can get down here in order to get to the funny bit. I worry about my nan. If she's alone in the house and she falls, does she make a noise? My favourite noise at a gig is a laugh followed by ooh. I met an incredible girl on the internet. Smart, sexy, uninhibited. Of course, it turned out to be a 12-year-old paraplegic boy. I'll be honest, the sex was disappointing. They've laughed because of the reflex of, I thought that was funny, and I didn't judge it. And then as soon as they've had, half a second to judge it, they go, oh, hang on, that's a bit. I live quite near a special needs school. There's a sign outside. It says, slow children. I thought, well, that can't do much for their self-esteem. But look on the positive side, of course, they can't read it.
Ricky Gervais, I've heard of him. Yeah. He's gonna be good, I think. Watch this space.
When Ricky first came to the public's attention on Channel 4's 11 o'clock show, fan mail was a little thin on the ground.
In 1903, Emmeline Pankhurst set up a new society called the Women's Social and Political Union. It believed in action, not words, and held demonstrations and attacked property in protest against the lack of women's rights. These suffragettes, or lesbians, were often arrested and put in jail. Bet they had a field day.
Ricky Gervais' 11 o'clock show character was basically an immensely un-PC, very rude, very abrasive street interviewer. People didn't realise it was a character, and people assumed that was just what he was like.
Of course, nowadays there are muff bandits in all walks of life. They still usually write biffers like Katie Lang or Ellen, but now and again a real babe turns fishmonger, and that's a waste. Next week, gay rights.
So for a while, he was, particularly for a Channel 4 audience, he was the most hated person on television.
Ricky's next project changed all that, but rewriting sitcom history just wasn't enough for him.
Ricky did that thing that just really annoyed everyone, I think, by not only writing, the masterpiece of The Office, but also then woke up one day, yawned, scratched his arse and said, oh, I think I'll do a bit of stand-up.
I will, of course, be touching on the most violent and destructive animal on the planet. The giant gorilla, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, look at him. Some people think the most violent and destructive animal on the planet is man. Hello?
I have to say, amongst most comics, there was an attitude of, die on your bloody arse, you flipping actor, jumped up, actor, writer, think you can do stand-up. Go on, then. And then he was bloody good.
You don't need to speak French if you're English. You don't need to, you know what I mean? You don't. If you go to France, talk a little bit louder. If he still doesn't understand what you're saying, smash the place up.
Your stand-up is very different to, like, David Brent, the part that made him so famous. It's quite cruel. He's quite cutting, isn't he? And he definitely tackles the subjects that you know, that are really edgy.
Sharks, brilliant. Nazis, rubbish. But the shark's an amazing creature, and it can taste and smell the slightest human secretion of, like, blood and sweat, 1 part in a billion from a mile away. A shark would have found Anne Frank like that.
He's just got funny bones, you know. I think Ricky could read the phone book and he'd be laughing.
I've been to her house, it's tiny. I can't believe one of them didn't go, let's look upstairs today, you know what I mean? What the fuck were they doing? Okay, yes, yeah. Sarge, wait, what? What's that tapping noise? Rats, move on. Oh. She had time to write a novel, for Christ's sake. Well, it ends a bit abruptly, and no sequel, lazy.
I've got to apologise to you, sorry. Just before I came on, I don't know if anyone saw, I just checked my flies, and then I was aware of a few faces just looking at me like that. I was rubbing myself a little bit like a sex criminal, just in a...
Embarrassment doesn't even figure in my existence.
What the hell's he doing?
Ross Noble is the supreme master of spontaneous freeform comedy. He's revered by his peers who consider him one of the most exciting comedians of our time.
Obviously, Ross Noble is wonderfully adept at taking a situation from nowhere and running with it for 20 minutes.
He has this supercharged brain that can click into action.
Let's take a monkey and attach a breville to its leg. Oh, how cool would that be? Could you imagine that? A monkey with a breville leg. Oh, because you could train it to just sit in your house and you could sit there like that and just go, oh, I fancy a bit of a cheese sandwich. Breville monkey!
I honestly thought that I was an observational comedian until I started getting described as surreal. And I went, oh, all right then, fair enough.
God, I wish I was Diane Fossey. She probably didn't do that when she's gorillas in the mist, you know. She probably wasn't, you know, going, I'll study these monkeys, I'll gain their trust, and then eventually, when they're sleeping, I'll cut their legs off and replace them with brevilles.
He is just amazing because he riffs off the audience.
I just think it's rude to ignore them, you know. Just the way I am, just, you know, on stage, off stage. I'm just very, very easily distracted.
How are you lads there? Desperately trying to get to your seat without anyone noticing. Oh, sorry, I said lads, and it's a bloke and a woman. Fantastic. What a great way to start a show that is there. How are you, sir, and your incredibly butch girlfriend? That's
what I like doing is hopefully sort of involving them, so, you know, by the time it gets to the end of the show, everyone's kind of leaving going, I wish I'd had that much input.
And an excellent fringe, might I add. Well done. You know, because some people have the hair and then like a bit of a fringe, or like, but you've fully committed, haven't you? You've got fringe! There's no kind of gentle there's no like, a bit of a hairline. Fringe! Really, at first, when you first came in there, I actually thought you were wearing a helmet. Do you know what I mean?
Some people describe it as, it's, you know, subverting this and that, and it's stream of consciousness, and you say, ultimately, it's just a bloke dicking about.
What the fuck is up with the police, my God? I'm scared I ain't get rid of no guns. Fuck that shit. And I had a cop pull me over the other day, scared me so bad, made me think I stole my own car.
I think the greatest stand-up at the moment, kind of the most important stand-up, I would say, is the American comedian Chris Rock.
Get out the car! Get out the fucking car! You stole this car! I'm like, damn, maybe I did.
Over the last 10 years, Chris Rock has been the most influential and funniest stand-up to come out of America. His routines provoking national debate and dividing whole communities.
He says what we're all thinking. The best compliment you give to any comedian is, you say what I think and don't dare to say.
There's like a civil war going on with black people. And there's two sides. There's black people and there's niggers. And niggers have got to go. Every time black people want to have a good time, ignorant-ass niggas fuck it up.
Rock's most controversial work to date is the Emmy Award-winning Niggers vs. Blacks routine from 1996. Attacking sections of the black community, Rock was lauded and lambasted in equal measure.
Nah, man. And I see some black people looking at me. Man, why you gotta say that? Why you gotta say that? It ain't us, it's the media. Please cut the fucking shit, okay? 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 When I go to the money machine tonight, all right? I ain't looking over my back for the media. I'm looking for niggas.
Thankfully, I think Black America, there's a lot more middle-class blacks now who, you know, are slightly like everyone, are slightly ashamed of part of your own culture as well. And for Chris to pinpoint that is, you know, that's kind of been on the zeitgeist of comedy.
You know what the worst thing about niggas? Niggas always want some credit for some shit they supposed to do. For some shit they just supposed to do. A nigga will brag about some shit a normal man just does. A nigga will say some shit like, I take care of my kids. You're supposed to, you dumb motherfucker. What you talking about?
Hello. I'm looking for my friend.
Those of us of a certain age, we tend to think that alternative comedy started in 1980, 79, but there are these funny people that are like prefigured it, like Victoria Wood.
She's got that dangly earrings with sausages on them. When they're not in her ears.
Victoria Wood is a phenomenon. Writer, actor, singer and comedian, she has done pretty much everything you possibly can when it comes to comedy.
Victoria Wood has that same quality Alan Bennett has, just humdrum life, the profound, the mundane in the same sentence, and that's what's so great about her.
Huge. Everybody in my class was enormous. They had to stop us doing cross-country running because we dented a viaduct going on. So everybody was on a diet the whole time, and we thought that yoghurt made you thin, so we used to eat yoghurt all the time. And we used to say, Sandra, if you're going up to town, get us a raspberry yoghurt. If they haven't got raspberry, get something else. She used to come back and say, I can't get your raspberry yoghurt. Forgot your meat potato pie.
What's really weird about her material is it's not things I'm interested in, like the issues of middle-aged women or cake, but she just has got such a craftsmanship about it.
So I'm thinking, now what size am I now? You know, because I wasn't sure, like 16, 18. Look at Vanessa Feltz, she looks about to be the same size as me. She's a size 12, oddly enough. And in Gap, I'm only a size 12 because they're American. In Marks and Spencer's, I'm only a size 3 because they didn't want to upset anybody. And in Topshop, my hip set off an alarm as I go through.
Victoria Wood is, for my money, the only really successful comedian this nation's seen in this last few years. A funny lady.
Let's do it! Let's do it! I really want to rant and rave. Let's go, cause I know just how I want you to behave. No bleakly, no meekly, beat me on the bottom with a woman's weekly. Let's get it tonight. Thank you.
So I better introduce myself, because there's a few of you thinking, this roadie's a bit up himself, isn't he?
He goes off on these weird tangents, which are quite surreal, but you go along with it.
My mind's starting to unravel so soon. Like a tapestry and some angry kittens.
He looks funny. You can't help it. Look at the man.
So good evening, I am Bill Bailey, 1982, Michael Bolton Stars in Their Eyes regional finalist.
Next, Bill Bailey, self-confessed Klingon lookalike and master of meandering surrealist comedy.
It's the thing that Python did, where you take a highbrow subject and talk about it in a lowbrow way, or lowbrow subject and talk about it in a highbrow way. Those juxtapositions, those status exchanges are great.
But it's very difficult when you're in a different country and somebody says to you, what's Britain like? I mean, what do you say? What's Britain like? It's just, you know, we've got nectar points, you know. They're quite handy. We have strong prevailing southwesterly winds. 52% of our days are overcast. So as a nation, we're infused with a wistful melancholy.
His approach to his comedy actually comes from this sort of Molière philosophical French comedic tradition. And what he does is he slapsticks it with a bit of hippie ethos at the front.
And on the upside, we've got little chefs. Which were built many years ago on ley lines, and then the roads just came in and connected them up.
Bill Bailey started his career in a musical duo called the Rubber Bishops, and most of their act consisted of pastiche songs.
Underpainted, wobbly clocks that look a bit like fried eggs. Debated, funny-looking people with long, spindly legs.
I just loved the way he arrived. He was a double act, and he went solo, and boom, he just arrived, and all the performers wanted to watch him do his stuff.
I'll give you a demonstration of a catastrophic technical failure at the U2 gig, right?
As much as it seems like absolute nonsense, he's doing musical parody and introducing big ideas in a completely nonsensical framework, and everybody loves it.
Normally music, I find, sits quite uncomfortably with comedy. It can be kind of an hour comedy song, and it's a little bit yakety-yakety, but he's just such a great player of instruments.
The BBC news team sounds like someone's of apocalyptic rave.
Bill Bailey, live, has to be one of the funniest men in this country. I just think he's a clever, clever man, and he makes me laugh. It comes often out of left field, and I really do rate him.
This is the true way! Follow us, not the others! They are the evil ones!
And now, the weather!
Please welcome Bill Hicks.
Hicks was one of these comedians that just spoke his mind, didn't give a shit about anything.
A lot of Christians wear crosses around their necks. You think when Jesus comes back, he ever wants to see a fucking cross? It's kind of like going up to Jackie Onassis with a little sniper rifle pendant, you know. Hey, Jackie, just thinking of John. We loved him.
Before his death, aged just 32, Bill Hicks was on a mission. His razor-sharp, angry political comedy railed against the establishment and made him one of the most influential and trailblazing comedians of his generation.
Those who found Hicks when he was alive found someone who was brave and who was showing a way, or trying to find a way, of thinking against the system.
I'd never seen comedy like that. I'd never seen comedy that had purpose beyond jokes and commitment beyond hilarity.
Those guys were in hog heaven out there. You understand, man? They had a big weapons catalog opened up. What's G12 do, Tommy? Well, it says here it destroys everything but the fillings in their teeth. Helps us pay for the war effort. Well, shit, pull that one up. Pull up G12, please. Cool. What's G13 do?
One of the things I loved about Bill was that he had this, he was like disappointed in humanity in a way, and, you know, was angry because he wanted it to be better, and would talk about these outrages.
That looks cool.
Bill's desire to change America's mindset went beyond simply performing on stage. In 1993, he travelled to Waco, Texas, with his friend Kevin Booth to see firsthand how the authorities handled the disastrous siege of the Branch Davidian compound.
Here they have Bible studies and ammunition studies back to back, or they have reloading classes for the children.
Just like every home in America. All I know is it's going to be hell to pay when David Koresh, a.k.a. Jesus, a.k.a. Vernon Howell, makes his final move for the Lord.
Good evening. The Waco cult siege in Texas ended this evening in a devastating inferno and what appears to be mass suicide.
So the major news said that the Branch Davidians started the fire. If I'm not mistaken, correct me when I go off the story here. And that the Branch Davidians started the fire, and all they did was shoot in tear gas. And yet I've seen with my own eyes but Bradley tanks shooting fire into the compound, which, isn't that odd that no major news source has picked up on that? How do you think that's newsworthy? Because that basically means that the government, from the FBI, the ATF, up to Janet Reno, including Clinton, are liars and murderers.
The fact that that horrible thing happened after we were there and we filmed that kind of made it so Bill was very passionate about that, and he started incorporating, you know, the Waco thing into his routine after that, and started talking about Waco all the time. And the gist of it was basically, you know, hey, if you don't do what we want you to do, we'll just burn your fucking house down.
Fuck them. They are liars and murderers. All governments are liars and murderers. And I am now Jesus. Now. And this is my compound.
Bill had enjoyed significantly more success in the UK than in his native America, so much so that on the 10th anniversary of his death, an early day motion was tabled in the House of Commons in his honour by MP Stephen Pound.
This House notes with sadness the 10th anniversary of the death of Bill Hicks on the 26th of February 1994. Recalls his assertion that his words would be a bullet in the heart of consumerism, capitalism and the American dream, and mourns the passing of one of the few people who may be mentioned as being worthy of inclusion with Lenny Bruce in any list of unflinchingly and painfully honest political philosophers.
Hicks is someone that'll just grow and grow through the work he's left now as well. But just seeing Hicks in a small venue, it's pretty much, you can put your finger on, that's what stand-up comedy should be.
John Lennon, murdered. John Kennedy, murdered. Martin Luther King, murdered. Gandhi, murdered. Jesus, murdered. Reagan, wounded. You know. Bad fucking choice.
Harry Hill. Where does he get his shirt from?
What are the chances of that happening, man?
Harry Hill has managed a major achievement in the world of stand-up. With a strange mix of old-fashioned comedy and bizarre surrealism, he's not only become one of the most popular off-the-wall stand-ups in Britain, but also one of the unlikeliest candidates to be completely embraced by the mainstream.
Well, my old dad used to say to me, always fight fire with fire. And that's why he was thrown out in the fire brigade.
I love Harry Hill. Everyone loves Harry Hill, though, don't they? Surely. I think you'd have to be quite a depressed individual not to like Harry Hill. And they love him. He's a first-class scamp.
Apparently the main problem with heroin... Oh, yeah, the main problem with heroin... It's very Moorish, apparently.
Technically, it's brilliant. And also, he writes really, really good jokes. And he's like a proper entertainer who isn't awful. It's an amazing thing.
I think it's quite easy to be really surreal and wacky and crazy and make no sense. He's actually more sensible than that. He's cleverer than that.
This morning, there was a traffic warden standing by the car going... I said, look, relax, I'll move it. She said, you relax, it's my day off. And she handed me a beautiful charcoal drawing of my car.
Harry Hill moved from practicing medicine to full-time comedy when the Best Newcomer Award was created just for him at Edinburgh in 1992.
Hey, guys, gals, remember when they allowed calculators in the maths exam? Oh, the excitement.
When I first used to see Harry, I didn't get it.
Well, I asked my mum for the Casio PF 100. Yeah, it's a lovely calculator, I think you'd agree. But
once you do, it is an absolute revelation, and it's just like a joy. You just think, I've got it now.
But she bought me the Casio PF 200, which, as you may know, is an electronic organ. Question 1. Question 2.
There are people that begin as alternative comedians and have all the intelligence and cleverness and wit that incorporates, but are palatable enough to be a mainstream success as well, and Harry's one of those people.
Stalagmites and stalactites. That's how I remember them. You've got to have a system, haven't you? Marlon Brando, Suzanne Dando. That's how...
I think the reason my dad is held in such, esteem over in America and as well as over here in the UK is the fact that he was sort of on the cutting edge at the time. He was new. He gave a new voice to stand-up comedy.
Richard Pryor,
stands alone.
Jesus God, take me now, Lord. Yeah, come on, Peckerhead.
Richard Pryor at his best is kind of amazing.
What? Jesus, sit your ugly ass down.
Heavily influenced by Bill Cosby, in the 1960s, Richard Pryor was making his living as a clean-cut stand-up comic.
I'm from an average type family, 11 kids. No mother and father, just kids. When I was young, I used to think my people didn't like me because they used to send me to the store for bread, then they'd move.
You're a Negro.
But in what Pryor calls an epiphany moment, all that changed one night in 1967 when he was playing at the Aladdin Casino in Las Vegas.
My father literally was on stage and just had a moment where he just said to himself, screw this. He was like, fuck it, and decided that was it and walked off and everyone was mad and you'll never work here again kind of thing. But for him, it was important because he was tired of fitting a mold.
Well, this is the fun part for me when the white people come back after intermission and find out niggas done stole their seats.
He was a ghetto boy. I mean, that's the truth. He came from the street, and he needed to be talking about that.
We were sitting here, weren't we?
Yes, we were sitting right there.
Well, you ain't sitting here now, motherfucker.
Pryor's comedy changed. He began to bare his soul during his performances, talking about his extremely hard upbringing and exposing his pain and vulnerability on stage.
I think what the greatest thing is for my father to be able to take, exact moments in life and put them in front of people to see, like the whole shooting up the car.
And it seemed fair to kill my car to me, right? Because my wife was gonna leave my ass. I said, not in this motherfucker, you ain't. No, Lord. Then the police came. I went in the house. Because they got magnums too. And they don't kill cars. They kill niggas.
But he also became renowned for the enormous number of characters he brought into his act.
He was a brilliant comedy actor that found things that you never thought about.
Okay, I'm gonna pull my panties down a little bit. Okay? Now you don't you do nothing, don't you be funny.
I remember he did once a girlfriend in the park that he was talking to her, and in the middle of it he was playing the girlfriend. She squatted down and went to the bathroom. On stage. It was insane.
Cool, now if you see something, you let me know. You're not gonna do nothing funny, are you? No, baby, go ahead. I ain't gonna do that. Go ahead. Okay, I'm just pull it down a little bit. I like to wait till they get into it, right? And go, somebody's coming!
The insights that came out of almost every word reflected the most basic truths of human behavior in a way that I don't think anybody equaled in our time.
Totally original material.
He's innovative, he's creative, he's original, and he's worked very hard at his craft.
Probably Eddie Izzard, I think, is the best stand-up I've ever seen.
I'm going to be extra funny tonight, just for you people. An extra 10% funny.
Eddie Izzard is one of the most unique performers in the world of stand-up, taking his audience into a world entirely of his own with his rambling, surreal monologues and his ability to extract humour from the unlikeliest of subjects.
Beekeepers must lose it occasionally. You're there, you got the netting, you got 2,000 bees, and essentially you're trying to steal honey. Morning. Hello, knock, coming in, hello. Look, there's a Ferrari over there. Can you see that Ferrari?
It's like being a comic philosopher, having a comic attitude and viewpoint on life, and you can not only talk about things that you've done, but what you think should happen, what you feel has happened in history, politics, anything.
That was weird. When your gran called your granddad, and you were there going, he's your granddad too? Are you my sister?
He made it clear that you could talk about anything you want,
You could pick any subject, no matter how flimsy, and you could spin it out.
Eddie started out working as a street performer in the early 80s, but moved quickly into stand-up. His unique surreal style was first seen on TV comedy showcase First Exposure in 1988.
Blood is thicker than water means that you should be kind to your relatives, but custard is thicker than blood. Does this mean we should be nice to trifles?
I always liked surreal because I was very much influenced by Monty Python, and some of it's just talking crap.
The Swiss guards, they have the Swiss Army knives. Ah. Now we have the scissors. Ah. Yeah, I can see you. I can see you. You're upside down now. And with this one, I can open a can of beans in a week.
Eddie has toured 7 multi-award-winning one-man shows and is one of the very few British stand-ups to have had enormous success in America. In 1998, he became the first British comedian to be given his own HBO comedy special.
So I just went in to get New York and play New York relentlessly. And I went back 3 years in a row, and then in the end I played there 4 months in 1998. And then HBO sort of cemented it because it was put out and endlessly rotated and got these Emmys, and I was just very tactical about it.
We're going to change your name, Jerry. It's the name that's the problem. And his name changed from Jerry Dorsey to Engelbert Humperdinck. I mean, I just wanted to be in the room when they were working that one through. Zinglebert Bembledack. Yingibert Dangleband. Zanglebert Bingledack. No, Jerry Dorsey. I like Jerry Dorsey. No, we can't. What have we got? Zinglebert Bembledack, Tringlebert Wangledack, Slop Bumwaller, Engelbert Humptyback, Zinglebert Bengledack, Engelbert Humperdinck, Vinglebert Wingledank. No, go back one. Engelbert Humperdinck.
William Shakespeare went into a pub, a landlord said, "Get out, you bad." You bad! He's a bad, isn't he? Hey! We've started now. No, we've started.
Peter Kay is a traditional comedian par excellence.
First time I ever saw Peter Kay, you just gotta go, well, yeah, he's gonna be massive.
I think he's a fantastic comedian. I think he's tremendously giving of himself.
Is this the way to...
At number 2, the most popular comedian working in the UK today. It's the Bolton boy wonder, Peter Kay, a stand-up who has rejuvenated end-of-the-pier humour and whose first national tour was seen by over 300,000 people.
Oh, balls to your offers. I want friends. That's what I want on offers. But when you text crap. What are you watching? What are you watching? Big Brother. So am I. I know. We're in the same room.
Peter, because he'd done that tour, My Mum Wants a Bungalow, it was just effortless. Unbelievable.
He does own that stage and he's about it. He has got that star quality, really.
Naked man running down a road with a woman on his back. Where are you going? Fancy dress party. What else? Tortoise. Who's she? That's Michelle! Michelle!
He's ministering to something the public have wanted for a long time and not been given. So in a sense, it's a sort of nostalgia that he evokes, but more than that, I think.
Bullseye, Sunday afternoons. I used to love Bullseye, It were weird Bullseye because it was shit and it were good.
I'd like to thank Peter Kay for extending my career by some decade. Because he does a routine on Bullseye. It's very funny.
Leanne, she bit dart player. It's stonewashed denim. Love and hat, tattooed on her knuckles because she'd lost her finger.
You can tell it was all the performance, but actually it's the whole package that makes it. And you can't really have one without the other. You know, he couldn't go out there and read the phone book. I think he's got good jokes. He's a really, he's a solid writer.
I have a dream. A new Phoenix. God forbid he be melodramatic.
And Phoenix Nights made Peter Kay one of sitcom's best-known stand-ups.
Chicken kebs, garlic bread.
Garlic bread?
Garlic bread. That's right, Max, garlic bread. It's the future. I've tasted it.
But this TV success hasn't meant that he's deserted his first love.
Do you ever dip your biscuit in your tea and it breaks? Do you ever do that? It's like slow motion. Mom! Get a spoon! Me biscuit's falling in me brew!
To
To be able to fill the Manchester Evening News Arena, to be able to fill that space and have everyone hanging on your word, every word, for one person on a stage to be able to do that, you know, that is something very special.
99 down and just 1 to go, so stick around and find out who you have voted the greatest stand-up ever.
But I know my client's innocent. There's something not quite right here. This is a key witness. Oh, it doesn't add up. That's not true. Objection.
Objection!
Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Justice for All, only on Nintendo DS.
Blah, blah, blah. 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 Blah, blah. You're lovely to me, yes you are. We've travelled together, we've travelled so far. Your tongue it is wise and there's love.
New King's Milk grate every day. Finer flour and a new recipe means deliciously soft bread every day.
To me, yes you are.
New grate every day from King's Milk.
The reason we crave meaning is because it makes us happy. Does that make me evil? Yeah.
There's a simple explanation for why I always win.
What made you think he was right?
Because he's house. Second place is death.
Next time he won't get lucky, he'll kill someone.
You don't get a second chance. Stand up and be a man.
Had no objective reason to think that I was right. Just needed the puzzle. It's another thing we have in common.
The new series of House, followed by Sharp, coming soon on 5.
I've been into computers since I was a lad. I suppose I could end up doing an IT job in an office.
Smoky lad. Right. Keeping busy, Jins.
Oh yeah. But being an engineering technician in the Royal Navy, I've got to be a bit more creative. If the server goes down, I can't just call in some bloke to come in and fix it. But to be honest, sometimes I just switch it off and on again. For your opportunity in the Royal Navy, visit our website.
When is a good deal not a good deal on car insurance?
When I'm not rewarded for my careful driving, just because I've been on Mum's policy.
At Direct Line, all named drivers can build up a no-claims discount for when they need a policy of their own.
That's better.
Well, they don't give you a discount on your family's second car.
If you insure more than one car with us, we'll give you extra discounts.
That's better.
When the price looks good, but you only get a discount when you're a new customer.
At Direct Line, not only do you get a 10% discount when you buy online, but unlike some insurers, you keep it when you renew.
That's better.
Go online for a 10% discount. Direct Line, a good deal better.
Join Channel 4 for a very special Peter Kay Night of Laughter with hilarious outtakes from Phoenix Nights, a behind-the-scenes look at his record-breaking tour, and see Peter's legendary last night at the Manchester Arena. Peter Kay Night, next Sunday from 9 on 4.
Welcome back, and it's the moment you've all been waiting for. After seeing some of the funniest men and women ever, it's time to reveal your #1 stand-up of all time.
Like that.
He is astonishingly brilliant. Original, refreshing, covers a subject matter across the board.
Really fascinating imagination. Great, distinct delivery.
He makes you listen to him. You know, even with that accent, you hang on every word.
And he sort of led the way. He just went there, and everyone was about 10, 15 years behind.
Over 150,000 of you voted, and we have a winner. The stand-up you think is the funniest ever.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very special welcome, please, to Billy Connelly.
When Billy Connelly made his first appearance on The Parkinson Show in 1975, it was the first time he had been seen by a national audience. His career went stratospheric. Since then, Billy has become Britain's biggest and best-loved comedy export, and his routines have influenced a whole generation of stand-ups.
I think all comics that are working owe him kind of a debt. An incredible performer.
He just takes the audience by the throat.
Get it for your person! You person! Get it for there!
Even if you don't understand a word he's saying, he is funny because he's so primitive.
Bart.
Oh, Billy, come on, I'm with a girlfriend here. Give us a break.
Hello, Shadoran!
Billy Connelly's been going for years and years and years and got a massive worldwide audience.
He was ahead of the game then and still is now.
But wouldn't you like to be sat around having a pint with him every night and him just telling you stories? Not trying to be funny, just being funny.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, he's the best that, like, this country has produced, hands down.
Connelly is the stand-up master.
I would like to...
Connelly was brought up in the tenement blocks of Glasgow, and it was this and his 5-year welding apprenticeship in the shipyards which shaped his comedy.
The idea was that you walk straight out of the school gates into the open gates of the shipyard, and that was going to be it. And to find comedy, or is brilliant.
And one day
Billy started out as a folk singer, but his reputation as a comic grew, and by the late 1970s he'd become one of the most popular comedians in Britain.
I used to be a folk singer, but I was dreadful. I had a voice like a goose farting in the fog. It's called How Can I Tell You I Love You When You're Sitting in My Face. Here we go. That's oral sex he's talking about. Do you hear it? First he's on about this oral sex.
He was doing much cleverer observational stuff before, it was 10 years before people really caught up with it, I suppose.
He can talk about anything. He can talk about walking up the stairs, buying a suitcase. You laugh at it. You laugh at him. It's not a joke. It's everyday life, but you laugh at him.
Felt like he was just a guy, like you felt connected to him, like he's just a guy talking to you in a bar, like one-on-one, even though the place was sold out. It was very amazing presence.
Yeah.
I've never come away from watching Billy Connelly and thought, well, that was a waste of my money. I've never, ever come away from it without at least once having been totally helpless with laughter.
Amazing. Just a legend. Pretty much invented what we do for a living, I think.
Thanks for watching the 100 Greatest Stand-Ups. You've seen 100 of the greatest comedians of all time, and you voted for them. But remember, just because they're comedians, it doesn't mean they have to be funny all the time. Good night.
Just probably half the people that's voting on there never fucking seen me.
How long do you want to go on touring for?
What's your business so long? Sooner or later, everybody has to be the same fucking moronic voice.
Mention some comedians and I'll tell you what I think of them.
Bernard Van.
Cunt.
Freddie Starr.
Prick.
Jasper Carrot.
Wanker.
Roy Chubby Brown.
Nice bloke.
No, I just want to get it.
What the kind of it's a fucking obnoxious question. How long have you been touring?
Do you know Omid Jalili?
Is that real? Are you making up people now?
Hitler came back with 10 good minutes. We'd stop and say, hear him out. He's got some good knock-knock jokes.
And I resent it. And I wish you keep this part on the show. This will be interesting.
Yoshi Silent DS